Good morning. Oh, good, you're awake. Thank you, Darrell, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you for inviting me here today to talk about how to attract your Wonder Woman, where to look and what to say. Now, this topic is near and dear to my heart because I spent the last 30 years working as one of the only women in male-dominated industries, and 18 of them in insurance. I started in the 1970s when the only talk of gender difference was, well, the obvious ones. But before we get to the meat of my story, let me give you a little background so you can understand why you might want to listen to me. My career was one that was either I was attracted to male-dominated industries or they to me. I'm not sure why, I'm not sure how, but it happened. I'd been in construction, security systems, copiers, and then insurance. Now, I chose, when I went into construction, the most feminine of construction, and that would be roofing. My training was interesting in this company, and it went something like this. I was 27 at the time, and I was the only woman in the state of Connecticut in commercial roofing. The company thought I would be a great asset, and of course, I was excited about the challenge. They told me 5 things to remember, and I always remember them. Number 1, as you may imagine, there's a lot of specifications in roofing, but what they told me was I needed to know nothing, because I'd always have an expert with me. But I would be the point of contact, the sale would be mine, and I would be the face of the company. Second thing they told me was that because this took place in the 70s, you had to dress for the part. So I was told I had to wear a dress or a skirt because I needed to stand out in the crowd. Now remember, I was the only woman in the state of Connecticut in commercial roofing, so I'm pretty sure I stood out, but I understood the sentiment behind it. Number 3, they told me my appointments would not always take place in my office. In fact, sometimes it would be on the job site, which would be the roof. Okay, 2 women on this side got that. Number 4, since OSHA was very strict, I would be the company's #1 concern. So to make sure that I was always safe, I would climb the ladder first in case I fell. Now you got it. Okay, and number 5, they told me always greet your potential client with a firm handshake. So my very first appointment was International Silver, the very largest roof in the state of Connecticut. And as I climbed up the ladder, I heard the giggling, so I finally got why I was a big asset. So I get to the top of the roof, and I meet this potential client, and I give him number 5, the firm handshake. And he said to me, this is exactly what I heard, blah, 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 asphalt, because that's the only word I understood. And my expert did all the talking. Well, lo and behold, we did get the deal. And all I did, they all congratulated me, but all I did was actually climb the ladder. When we got back to the office, we got the high fives. We didn't do this. It was back then. We did this. And I felt like arm candy because I didn't do anything. So what I did was I devoured information on all the brochures until they told me not to do that because truthfully, they didn't want me to know anything. And if you know anything about women, women want to be taken seriously. So this was really not working for me. Well, years later, I got into the insurance industry. And for insurance, I was with all very, very, very successful men. These were my mentors. And what they wanted me to do was to step into their shoes and become them. Now, if they might have worn high heels, it might have been easier. But all kidding aside, they wanted me to become them. I tried to change things, and every time I did, what they told me was, stop being such a girl. Why do you have to make everybody your friend? Why do you have to ask so many questions? And don't worry your pretty little head, because they're going to buy you. So get in, get out, and get the check. Now, even though my business was based solely on referrals after about 90 days, I was told that my system was not duplicatable, because how can you teach someone how to do that? Now, as I advanced through the ranks and began recruiting, I was told to hire anybody that fogged the mirror. And if they were female and cute, they didn't have to fog the mirror. Okay, the other part was when we took our customers and their wives to a golf resort, I was told to take the wives to the spa while all the men went to the golf course, even though I was the agency manager. So it went on, and what I'm going to talk about today is actually how we're going to take the gender differences and help you with recruiting. Okay. Okay. So what happens when I was with insurance is they actually treated me like family, like they promised. Unfortunately, I was really kept like the step family. So I know firsthand how it feels to be a woman in the workplace, especially male-dominated industries, and insurance happens to be one of them. They had the best of intentions when it came to trying to incorporate me into their team. Unfortunately, they didn't know how. Because of this experience, I've spent the last few years researching and talking to both men and women about the differences between the sexes. So today what I'm going to do is share on how it all relates to recruiting, especially in the financial services. Now I'm going to zero in on how to use those differences when recruiting both men and women, whether the recruiter is male or female. And if we have time, I'll zero in on how you might want to retain these great women once you recruit them. So let's start with the obvious question. Why even make an effort to attract women? Well, first, women have made great strides in both the current workplace and filling in the pipeline for the future workforce. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported last year, for the first time ever in US history, women account for half of all the available US workforce. Now that number is expected to increase as the pipeline of women graduating from college enters the job market. And according to the last available census figures, women now earn 57% of all college degrees and make up about 60% of all graduate students. Now, that's not to say that men are not great employees. They certainly are. But all the data points to the fact that you found them. And guess what? You're doing quite well keeping them. But no matter how successful you are today, if you really take the time to concentrate on attracting this huge segment of the educated workforce, women, you could significantly improve your bottom line. Now, there's two very important statistics you should know about women that I'm going to talk about that's going to directly affect what I talk about today. Number one, women have an average of 171 email and phone contacts, far more than men. But number two, women are twice as likely as men to pass on important information, including recommendations, special notices, special offers to their expanded market. Now, these two behaviors and your knowledge of them will help you to understand the changes that I'm going to recommend in your recruiting program. So today I'm going to spend our short time together talking about only two important aspects of a recruiting program that focuses on bringing more women into your team. They are, where do you find women, and how can you more effectively interview women? Now, to effectively address these two aspects of recruiting, your overall recruiting plan must be specific, your actions must be taken by a specific date, and you must be able to measure your success. Doesn't that sound a little bit like goal setting? Same thing. So, where do you find these women? Well, a lot of my clients have the same first question when I walk into their agencies. Okay, so where do I find these super women with these superhuman Rolodexes? Well, you can find them in women-focused networking events, the chamber chapters that have women business events, community events for women. You can also find them in women's groups that meet regularly. Now, if you want interns at colleges, go to the sororities, not the fraternities. Go to the women's basketball team, not the football team. Go to the women's hockey team or other sports that are co-ed, horseback riding, archery. Don't just go where you would naturally network as a man. Look for professional groups that start with the words women in, such as women in construction, women accountants, women in publishing. And you're missing out, guys, if you don't attend an event simply because you feel you don't have the right equipment. You can increasingly find women online, such as LinkedIn groups. Now, you may be thinking right now, everyone networks, Judy, so what does this have to do with women? Well, the difference is the where and the how. So let's start with finding women at traditional venues, such as Chamber of Commerce meetings, women's group, and of course, getting referrals from women in your community. Now, networking here is a great way to find candidates because you speak to them unscripted, and you see how they conduct themselves in a professional setting. But you need to plan what you want to ask them. Don't lecture or monologue to women. Don't push your business cards on them, and don't sell them on the career at the event. Meeting with female business leaders is a good idea because female business leaders probably know other female business leaders, and they're going to know which one of their peers are unhappy with their current situation. Again, don't lecture on how wonderful the job is without first asking that nominator who they know. Few friends and coworkers will refer a prospective recruit if they don't think the person would be a good fit or at least an interesting candidate. Now, the ideal is to have both, to be referred face-to-face at a networking event where you can meet a female candidate and have the seal of approval from the reference. But here's how men and women are different around networking. Now, men network to gather valuable pieces of information for use at a decision at a later time. Women want to develop a relationship with you. They're making snap judgments about whether to even bother learning more about you. Men network and gather business cards. Women use this first meeting to ask questions and to get to know you better. Now, men want you to answer their questions with bullet points of information. Does that sound familiar, like being at home? Just give me the facts. Women want to weave these bullet points into a narrative. They want to draw a picture of them in the job and how it's going to impact their lives. But don't take my word for it. Try it during the next break. Try engaging one of the 10% of attendees to this meeting that's a woman and try using these ideas. You may find out more about your colleague than you ever would if you didn't approach her in the way that she wants to be approached. Now, for the women in the room, give the guys a break and be nice to them because you'll know they're practicing. Now, if you try out these techniques, I am confident you'll be more successful in attracting quality female candidates when you're in a networking event back at home. But let's talk a minute about non-traditional networking venues. Now, I challenge you all to create your own opportunities with women-specific groups. This can be something as simple as sponsoring a networking event for them. Now, in addition to providing some food and drink, you should have an expert from your company speak to them on a subject that's important to them. Not important to your business, important to them. Now, the focus should be on the needs of the women in the audience. If you keep the group small and make it kind of like a round table kind of discussion, you'll be able to get the participants to talk. And you'll get to hear what they think about a topic without having to actually ask them those questions directly. Now, here's an example. Sponsor breakfast for women in business in your community and have a facilitator that focuses on something that's important to them, but also will allow you to have a conversation with individual attendees that's important to you. Here's some ideas. How about like prospecting ideas when you're in a slump? Or identifying your best clients, or maybe picking leaders for your management team. Each of these subjects will get the attendees to talk, and you'll learn a lot about the women. One or more of them might be interesting to you as a candidate. And don't worry, because they will come. They'll appreciate the chance to share with other women, and you'll be taking the very first step towards being seen as someone that they want to know that gives to the community, not just takes. And this will be the first step towards developing a relationship with you and your company. Now, the important part of the sponsorship of the event is to build a relationship, not to sell. Now, the third and final venue we'll discuss for finding women is online. Now, multiple studies show that more women are online than men, and that number is growing. Women stay online longer than their male counterparts. They share information online far more than men do, and they participate in discussions and reviews much more often. Now, this behavior reflects what I said earlier about women being relational while men are more transactional. Men tend to get online, find what they want, gather information, and sign off. Women, on the other hand, are online looking for information, chatting with others, reading and developing opinions about your company, and more importantly, they're sharing those opinions with more contacts than male counterparts. And women spend an average of 5.5 hours a day online. Well, so what does this mean for your recruiting efforts? Is that you must be online, and you must stay online if you want to attract women to your company. Your firm needs not to have only an online presence, but it has to be active online if you successfully want to recruit women. So here's some examples. First, your corporate homepage. Now, I know we all have to deal with compliance, so let's just take these as suggestions. You want to go beyond merely posting jobs and describing what you do. Your About page should also reflect your corporate culture. For example, use quotes from your female producers and sales leaders about maybe some of their experience as a mentor or as a protege with some coworkers, or maybe some experiences that they've had with life insurance and maybe some other benefits. But you need to write in story form. Don't just provide a bulleted list of facts. For example, one company has a section of its site dedicated solely to recruiting women. It has links called Protect My Family instead of which insurance is best for me, or worse yet, under FAQs. And under management opportunities, this same company has a link called A Balancing Act, where a female manager discusses the age-old question, can a woman have it all? It's this sort of storytelling about long-term relationships that women want to hear. They want proof of your commitment to both their life and their career before they'll close the deal. And they want to envision themselves in the position. The salary, the commission, the bonus structure, yep, they're important to them, but they want to be secure in knowing that they can count on your support for a long time to come. In other words, women want a home. But let me emphasize that you should not only be online. Women need to be able to talk to a live person. She's not developing a relationship with a computer. The computer is merely a tool for her to better understand her prospective future business partner, you. Okay, so now we talked to the where. Let's talk to the how. How do you talk to women? Well, in order to hit it off with women in any of these venues, whether it's traditional or non-traditional or online, there's a few basic ground rules that'll help you engage women more easily on their turf. Rule number 1, women are relational, men are transactional. So how does that manifest in a networking situation? Well, what you need to do is you need to readjust your goals from being, I have to leave with X number of business cards at an event, to, I need to meet 3 women who I've engaged in first conversation that builds trust. A little bit different. So how do you do this? Instead of asking for a card, ask them to visit your website for a free download. The download should have some valuable information. It can be a white paper on the subject of a speech. It can be slides from a talk. It can be a report that your company released on your industry's prospects for the future. Whatever it is, it needs to show that you care enough to share some insights with her and that you plan on continuing the conversation with her after the first meeting. But it also provides to you an opportunity to capture her information so you can have and become a targeted conversation. Now here's another example of a non-traditional way to tap into the female market. One California recruiting firm developed relationships with 2 local universities and their sororities so that they can find top-notch female interns. Now, the result was not only finding top-tier talent, but the recruiting firm reported being inundated by referrals and having quite a few mentor relationships form. Now, they ultimately accomplished several things with this seemingly small change in their recruiting pattern. First, they developed a pipeline of female talent within their internships. Second, they created a system for getting referrals because women are more systematic in their referrals than men are. And third, they increased the number of mentor pairings with qualified female candidates who stayed on after the internship, which helped them keep more of the women that they recruited. Now, this type of retention of agents is crucial to growing your bottom line. So how can you change your interview to attract some candidates? Well, let's say you did 2 things I recommended. You went to a networking event, and you engaged in a couple of women with good conversations about themselves. Oh, wait, you don't know how to do the second part yet, do you? So here's what you need to do when you're talking to someone casually, or when you're talking at an event, or at a party, or even a structured interview. The last thing you want to do with a new potential candidate is to pontificate about how great your agency and your company are. She doesn't care. At least, not yet. It's all about them and not about you. Your role is to be interested, not interesting. Okay, rule number 2. Women are circular and men are triangular. What this means is that men are used to the concept of a hierarchy. They see their company organized in a triangle. They want to know who's the top dog. Women are collaborative. They see their company organized as a circle. They're more concerned about what their group is going to accomplish together than who the leader is. They think by raising the tide, we'll all do well. Now, it isn't that women are not competitive at all, because they are. But their first line of thought is not, how can I get into the chair of the person that's interviewing me? It's, how can this organization make my life better by supporting what I want? So your question should not be just about what she's accomplished, because you can read that on a resume. Instead, your question should be aimed at finding out what she wants her skills combined with the talents of your organization to do to improve her life. It's a critical difference in an approach. Women want freedom, they want flexibility of time, and they want no glass ceiling. But the last part is not the first in their minds. Telling a woman she'll make a lot of money is not as important to her as telling her that she'll be helped to make as much as she wants and to have the freedom to do what she wants in her life. Now, for some women who are mothers, it might mean leaving work at 3 o'clock to go to their daughter's dance recital. And for a single woman, it might mean buying herself a house. And if you don't know, ask. Because if you don't know her picture of her perfect life, then you don't know which way to steer the conversation. Rule number 3, what matters to you doesn't necessarily matter to her, at least not in the same way. Be careful what you highlight about your career path. Be careful about what you boast about your talk about your company, about your management team. Because instead what you want to do is describe the career path. Explain how it'll fit into her life. Will it allow her to grow professionally and still have a personal life? And don't just talk about your management team accomplishments in a vacuum. Explain how their success will help drive her success. Okay, so now you've found good female prospects, and you know you need to talk about the language of relationships. But now what? Well, as I mentioned earlier, women are relational while men are transactional. And I can't stress this difference enough. It's this very difference that defines the way men and women experience the world. Now, we all know this difference is physiological. Testosterone and estrogen have huge impacts on the way our brains work. But neither worldview is better or worse than the other. It's different. It's just different. Now, culture also plays an important role in sustaining these differences. But it's important to understand that these differences stem from biology, and that all people are on a continuum of the gender scale. But understanding these differences can help you identify the pitfalls in the communications between the genders, and how to forge new pathways to attract both men and women to your sales teams. Now, our place on the gender spectrum impacts all aspects of our lives. We communicate differently. We organize in groups differently. We make decisions differently. We even define the same exact words differently. For example, men communicate in transactional terms because, as I said, they see the world ordered as a hierarchy. This leads to more linear thinking because they concentrate on one thing at a time. And I know many of you have been accused of that. Women, on the other hand, communicate in relational terms because they see the world ordered as groups. This leads to more collaboration and circular thinking. They don't concentrate on one thing at a time. They see the big picture and juggle all the parts. Now, this difference often translates into conflicting definitions of the same word. Dr. Pat Heim conducted an interesting corporate research and found that both men and women agreed on the importance of teamwork. However, they dramatically diverged in the way they define teamwork. So here's how it happens. Men said that every person had a part to play in the project, and the team leader called the shots. This meant to them that once their part of the project was done, they could go home. They didn't expect anyone to help them complete their part of the project. In fact, it would be construed as an insult if another man stepped in to help him. Women, on the other hand, define teamwork by saying, you need to help wherever you need it, and you can come to the consensus about what needs to be done. This meant to them that once you finished your part of the project, you looked around to see if anyone else needed help. Because going home while others were still working on their part of the project just didn't seem appropriate. Now, you can see how a man might think he's supporting a woman on his team by saying something like, you go, girl. I know you can do it. Call me at home if you need me, if you have any questions. But the woman feels abandoned. On the flip side, a woman may feel that she's helping when she asks if she can help the man finish up his part, now that she's done. But he thinks she's smothering him, and that she's implying that he can't do his part of the project. Now, this just goes to show that it's important that we all understand how keywords are defined, and what the expectations are for the rest of our team. It's very important that you share these definitions with recruiting candidates so they know exactly what to expect, and what's expected of them as a member of the team. But these communication differences don't just stop with oral communication. Did you know that 90% of all communication is body language? And it's body language that usually trips up a lot of recruiters. When male recruiters meet with female candidates, they inadvertently give off different body signals that contradict their words. This can lead to a disconnect between the male hiring manager and the female job candidate. For example, when men listen to other men, they're often shoulder to shoulder and may not even look at each other. Men typically have minimal or limited eye contact. They typically don't nod their head, they don't go, uh-huh, and they don't respond with any comments while listening. Men both deliver and listen for facts and figures. Now, women, on the other hand, they tend to face each other, and they trust people who look at them in the eye. They participate in the conversation, and they want their contribution to be acknowledged. This is because women are trying to determine if they want to develop a relationship with you and your company. So recruiters, this is what you need to do. Make sure that, number one, you look at women in the eye when they talk. Number two, participate in the conversation by nodding as the woman speaks, and even taking notes so you can refer back to exactly what she might have said. And number three, you want to talk in relational terms, such as we instead of I. Now, another unique area of distinction between the genders is how and why we ask questions. Now, men ask questions for one purpose only, and that's to gather information. Women ask questions for two purposes. One is to gather information, and the other is to show interest in the other person. So if your recruiter doesn't ask any questions, they're telling the female recruit that she's not interested. Therefore, recruiters should follow up on their information gathering questions with open-ended questions and allow the female prospect to actually talk about themselves. Male recruiters should also make a point to let a woman talk in story form and not cut her off. Now, male recruiters who are looking for bullets of information can mistakenly interpret the woman's storytelling as being unfocused or off point, but that's a common mistake. For example, if a man is asked what his perfect job is, he may say, I'd like to make X amount of dollars a year by selling a portfolio of insurance products to young families or to retirees. Well, a woman may not even mention the exact product she wants to sell, but instead she might say something like, I want to help parents create the financial security necessary to take care of their growing family. Now, she may be referring to the same exact financial products as the male recruit. However, she's painting a picture of the impact of those products instead of merely listing them. Now, in addition, she'll most likely add a description of her life, the way she wants to lead it, and how the job will fit into her lifestyle and help her achieve her goals. Now, male hiring managers can misinterpret these life-focused answers as lack of commitment to a job, but he'd be wrong, because what she is actually saying and what she's doing is showing how that job will fit into her life, which is a demonstration of her commitment. She's basically telling you that she'll build her life around your company, and that's exactly why she's also looking for a commitment from the company. Okay, I realize I just spoke in story form, so let me summarize the main points of the story for those of you who prefer just the facts. Okay, basically, the differences between men and women come down to this. Women are relational, men are transactional. So when you're recruiting women, you need to create a plan for building a relationship with them. You can start with these three simple steps. Number one, look for women where they congregate. Don't wait for them to come to you. Show them that you care by sponsoring an event that shows your expertise and that you care about her needs, and make sure you're online and responsive. Number two, speak their language. Ask questions. Allow them to answer in story form. Talk to them about the relationship they'll have with your company, and explain where they fit in, and look them in the eye when you do it. And number three, close the deal with a show of support that will make them part of your company family. Mentorship programs work very well here. Okay, so let's say you take all my advice and you have a brand new class of bright women in the pipeline. The next question is, how do you keep them? Now, that's an entire topic for another day, and I don't have a lot of time left. So I'll briefly mention the three most important things I've experienced, and the research bears out. You need to have mentorship programs, incentive programs, and advancement planning. Now, once you embrace these differences and apply them to your recruiting process, I am confident that you'll be able to identify, attract, and hire your own Wonder Women. And I know that if someone had spent just 5 minutes a week mentoring or coaching me on any of these topics, my career would have been a lot different. And I probably would have started talking about these gender differences a decade earlier. Now remember, just because you've always done things one way doesn't make them right. Now my son sent this to me last night, and it seems like a perfect way to end our time together. And the question is, why do companies and people do things the way they do? The explanation can be explained with monkeys, a cage, a banana, and a fire hose. Okay, so you build a nice big room-sized cage, and in one end of it you put 5 monkeys. In the other end you put a banana. Then you stand by with a fire hose. Sooner or later, one of those monkeys is going after the banana. And when it does, you turn the fire hose on and you spray the other monkeys with it. You replace the banana if needed, and then repeat the process. Now, monkeys are pretty smart, so they'll figure this out pretty quickly. If anybody goes near that banana, the rest of us get the hose. So soon they attack any member of the group who tries to go after the banana. Once this happens, takes one of the monkeys out of the cage and bring in a new one. Now, the new monkey is going to come in and try to make friends and probably go after the banana. But the other monkeys already know what this means. So they'll attack him to stop him from using the fire hose on them. Eventually, the new monkey will get the message and will even start joining in on the attack if another monkey goes for the banana. Now, you continue to swap out the monkeys for the original monkeys. Now, after repeating this a few times, the time will come when none of the monkeys in the cage have ever been sprayed by the fire hose. In fact, they'll never have even seen the hose, but they'll attack any monkey who goes after the banana. Now, if the monkeys could speak, and if you could ask them why they attack anyone who goes after the banana, the answer would most certainly be, well, I don't really know, but that's how things have always been done around here. So I thank you all for listening, and I look forward to continuing our relationship.